Hey, it's Kasim with your daily Google News, and today we're talking old news, because old news is good news, as they say. Nobody says that. I didn't spend a ton of time on this. I don't think a lot of people did. No, we didn't spend as much time on the iOS 14 update impact to Google because it was so catastrophic to Facebook, and we all wanted to see what was going to happen there. But the reason I'm bringing it up now is because I'm actually starting to see the impacts on some of our campaigns, specifically through the introduction of new tagging nomenclature. We're seeing G-braids, W-braids, in place of GCLIDs, and this is causing some mild issues that I just think are worth addressing. So this is, when was this published? Google told us. This article was last updated June 23rd of 2017, so it's been a minute. And what Google was doing is saying, hey, here's how we're adjusting for the iOS 14 update. And really what they're doing is they're taking GCLID away in order to comply with Apple's ATT policies, which are app tracking transparency policies, which they link to here. I have a link to this article in the description of this video, so you can go check that out if you haven't read that documentation yet. But if you've noticed that you've lost GCLID in a few different places, this is why. And Google is replacing GCLID with other tags. This new parameter, WBraid, will help you attribute conversions back to your ad campaigns and work with conversion modeling to give you more accurate measurement on iOS. To support this new parameter, the global site tag, Google Tag Manager, and Google Analytics with a linked Google Ads account will set new first-party cookie on your domains by default. That will attribute conversions back to ads subject to ATT policies. Here's what I understand. Google needs to comply with ATT, so it needs to remove individual identification, and then it's aggregated measurement again, which is, that's not new either, because we've been hearing a lot about that through various other things like Flock. But it looks like that's actually directly implemented here. So Apple's basically saying, hey, bro, you can't track my peep because they've opted out. And Google says, fine, then we'll track some level of activity that allows us to at least get a sense as to what these people are doing in aggregate so that we can put it back into our conversion modeling. And at the same time, Google has automatically enabled first-party data tracking, which I think is a masterstroke. I think this is really well handled. It also causes me to eat a significant amount of crow because I've been freaking Chicken Little the entire time I've had a YouTube channel, going on and on about automation and how Google is forcing us to use automated tools, and it's only for Google's benefit, and this can do nothing but hurt us. And here I am, so wrong in this particular instance, because smart bidding saves us from what would otherwise be a catastrophic loss of data. If we were trying to play a 100% manual game in this particular instance, we would be flying blind. We would be where Facebook advertisers are right now, and Google has hurdled that through the use of machine learning and smart bidding and all those things. So, as morbidly embarrassing as this is to admit, and as much as I'm going to hate having this publicly available, I was incorrect, and there would appear to be more use cases for some of what Google has been building than just to piss me off. So hats off to you, Google. Thank you for the help. A couple of notes for video discovery campaigns. You should enable audience expansion for remarketing or customer match campaigns, and also choose to include similar audiences in all ad groups. This makes sense to me. So Google's basically saying, hey, we lost a lot of our tangible audience, so make sure that you're enabling the folks on the peripheries that we can bring in to fill in the gaps effectively. It is to their interest, of course, and audience expansion historically hasn't always been the best, which if you've taken any of our training, that we tend not to turn that on right away, or if we do, we test it in a silo because it's kind of hit or miss. But in this particular instance, that's good advice. That's really sound advice. The other things, so this gets a little bit more opaque though, because so Google has some FAQs on the iOS 14 changes, which I appreciated, but the thing that I really liked it explains how does Google model conversions when there's no shared identifier between interactions and conversions, or when conversions can't be measured. And Google comes out to say, and we already you could guess at this, but I appreciate the documentation. We separate ad interactions based on whether we are able to observe the link between that ad and the conversion. So it's like, hey, here's everybody we can see, and here's not everybody we can't necessarily see, or all the things that are happening that we don't have a full view start to finish on. And once they have that, now they're looking for, and they go on to say that here, I don't have it highlighted, but they're identifying common denominators, the similar behavior. And then we train our machine learning model to determine the likelihood of conversions across all users that interact with the ad, even those that weren't directly seen because of browser or OS restrictions. So Google is doing what Facebook, and this is what I don't freaking understand, y'all. I don't know why Facebook did this. And I said that from the beginning. I don't know why Facebook said, okay, I can't see my iOS users. I'm just going to follow all the other users and then model that. That feels like a fix. It feels like a solve. And instead, Facebook was like, oh, we're screwed. 28 days down to 7, 3-day delay. We're not tracking anything. All dimensions go away. You know, they still had data. Now, admittedly, it's less valuable data. iOS users are a more valuable demographic, statistically speaking. And it's almost a ubiquitous truth. But something is better than nothing. And for some reason, Facebook chose to contract. Google chose, and I understand Google's in a much, much, much better situation because, you know, Google's a more expansive. It's an ecosystem. It's not an app. Facebook is an app. You know, Facebook is a disembodied entity. It exists. It exists without its own. What would you call it? Like chassis. You know what I mean? And Google has browser hardware. Software, you know, analytics, like things that allow it to triangulate and more than triangulate, whatever, quadangulate, octoangulate, somebody teach me words. But you know what I'm saying? Like Google can get data from all over the places, and Facebook had like, you know, this bottleneck conduit, and the bottleneck was like, ha-ha, I cut you off at the knees. So I'm not trying to be overcritical, but all I'm saying is Google did what I assumed Facebook would have done, which is, all right, you took away some of this data, I'm going to use the data that I have to fill in the blanks. It makes sense. It also equips Google to sort of veer in the direction of their favor, which I anticipate them doing, because that's what they do. I'll include a link to this too. But the other thing that I think is really important for us to know is Google's modeled online conversions. Basically, it's not real data. It's like what we think data. And we're going to be relying on this for a long time to come, y'all. Conversion modeling is just going to get more and more prolific and more necessary. And so, you know, it's one of those things where what's aligned with Google's best interests and also what is just pragmatic are the same thing. And there's no way to fight them on this. There's an article by Wicked Reports that I've really appreciated, and I'm going to sound like I'm bashing, and I don't mean to bash. So Scott D, appreciate you writing this. Here's the thing, though. This is kind of a pet peeve of mine. We've got the citations as to where this information came from. I read all the documentation. I didn't pull out all the same information that is here. I don't know where some of this came from. So maybe Scott has an inside track, was able to interview somebody, knows something I don't, but I can't verify everything this article says. That stated, it has more context than was given to us inside of the Google documentation. Google's resources are here, URL parameters. Oh, that's another thing too, by the way. Auto tagging needs to be set up, which has kind of always been true, but now if you don't have that in place, then you're going to be up the creek without a paddle. And let me make a really quick departure. If you've done any cool ninja stuff with GCLID, you have to go back and fix that. And we've done a lot of that, by the way. So like you can run automation that says like, if GCLID is present, then do these things. And that's really cool because it gives you the opportunity to interact with paid users in a different way than you're interacting with organic users. Specific example, you can use tracking, like call tracking. So like call tracking metrics uses GCLID in order to identify whether or not it's a paid user, and then rolls over the phone number so you're tracking a paid user different than an organic user. The number they call is actually a different number. It's a different visual. Well, if you don't go update your scripts, your if this then that, you know, queries to include not just GCLID but the braids, G braid, W braid, whatever they are. I don't know how we're saying those words, by the way. Somebody teach me. Then you've lost, you know, the ability to interact with those users in that way. So really important that if you have any of that in place, then you fix it. If you don't understand what I just said, don't worry about it. That means you don't have anything there. But if for those of you that have gone in and kind of, you know, done some tricky ninja stuff with GCLID, make sure that you update it. This new parameter uses techniques that ensure it cannot be tied to any individual user. So they're complying with iOS here. Aggregation techniques, great, we understand that. De-identification in line with Apple's policies. Here's what I couldn't verify. This is where I don't know where Scott got this. And if y'all know, please let me know. Scott is saying that G-braid relates to search and shopping. W-braid relates to YouTube display and discovery. So G-braid ends up being web to app, and W-braid ends up being app to web, which feels like that could be true, but I don't know where that was. I don't know where that was stated explicitly by Google. So, and I mean, again, it would stand to reason that Wicked Reports actually has, you know, like a tie-in with somebody that would know better than little old me. But I don't like giving information that I can't verify from the source, for obvious reasons. So anyway, all that to say, this is worth noting. Where GCLID is being replaced, Google's filling in the blanks, and you know, all of a sudden, we've got third-party justification for Google's smart bidding. We have third-party justification for Google's move towards a more algorithmic approach. You know, kind of all the way up until this point, it's been very Google-driven, and now it's ecosystem-driven, and it makes it a much harder thing for me to fight or to complain about, because it kind of just saved us, and I didn't even realize it. Like, it's been saving us for months, and I didn't even realize. I didn't piece that together, you know, because I mean, it's not like it's hidden. It's basic and it's out there. But I guess what I'm saying is I didn't think about, like, oh, I wonder if, you know, if we didn't have smart bidding, this would be a really difficult ecosystem to contend with. So it's fun to learn just how stupid you are, and I did that today, and I'm sure I'll do that frequently. Appreciate y'all watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. That lets YouTube know we actually know what we're doing. We shoot a video every single day, so if you want to be notified, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any input, don't hesitate to hit us up in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. We get very little human interaction. Thanks for supporting our channel, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.